Hi, I'm Gina Wells,
Hi, I'm Kat Toon.
and this is the Success Principles Podcast. Michigan is known as the birthplace of Motown, headquarters to the auto industry, and home of the beautiful Great Lakes. The Success Principles Podcast features professionals and entrepreneurs with ties to this great state who have demonstrated innovation and success both within and outside of our Mittens border.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. Our guest today is Rebecca Smoker. I'm particularly excited about having Rebecca on. Rebecca is the director of the Detroit Lions cheerleading program as well as the live entertainment. And she's a former longtime director of the Detroit Pistons dance team, the Automotion. So Rebecca and I know each other from way back when we were both at the Palace together. Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's really great to be here. Yeah, thanks. It's great to have you on Success Principles. It's all about Michiganders and how we have what we do within our borders of Michigan and around. So if you could give us a little backstory about your Michigan history, where you grew up and what brought you to where you're at today, that would be wonderful to start.
Awesome. Sure. Yeah. So I'm a native of Michigan. I'm a true Michigander. Most of my family is here and grew up here. And, when I was younger, I grew up in East Detroit, which is now called East Point. And then my family made our way out to New Baltimore. So I graduated from high school from Anchor Bay. And then, I spent time at Oakland University and Macomb. For my college, and then so fast forward, I live in Bloomfield Hills now, but I never lived anywhere else long term. Like I said, I love Michigan. I love up north. I'm just a huge advocate of our state. And when I was a consultant for Anderson Consulting, and I traveled a lot. I traveled all over the country, and I lived in kind of part time in St. Louis. And up in Midland, but I've always been here. And I thought maybe in my younger years when I was really dancing that I would stay in New York or stay, in Dallas or somewhere, but I never did. I ended up staying here.
So with your roots in Michigan, were you dancing professionally, not through school so much, but kind of what were some of the dance companies that you were associated with that brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, so at a young age, community studio was really where I danced, and then in high school, there wasn't a lot of opportunity as there is now today. I did dance, and I was a Macomber. I sang and danced at Macomb College, and I always dabbled in it somehow. I started actually coaching dance team right out of high school. So the year I graduated from high school, that following year, I actually started coaching the team at Anchor Bay. So I coached some high school teams. And then eventually it led me to Oakland University, where I actually was a non-traditional student, and I worked there, or I went to school there, and I lived on campus year round and just really embedded myself in that community and started their dance and cheer and mascot program, and that still exists today. And with that, I also danced myself. So I started ballet again and really danced with, the music theater department there. And that's where I basically kind of just like fell in love with dance again. So then professionally after that, I was on the very first Detroit Pistons dance team in 1996. I was a non-traditional age. I was 30, and I was already retired as a dancer. And I was actually dancing alongside some of the women that I was coaching at Oakland University at the time. So much younger. And then I did dabble in some other professional things in Detroit, one of the first arena football teams, and just some other modeling and dance jobs.
Okay, so I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that you were actually on the first dance team. So where did that transition happen from being a performer in the Automotion into coaching the Automotion?
Yeah, so it's really both that story and the story of where I'm at now is just such a interesting circle of life story, and it's just it really has defined who I am. But I was at Oakland University coaching their dance team. I used to have these employees from the Palace come into Max and Irma's where I worked, and I used to wait on them for lunch every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to know them, and turns out it was Pete Skorich and Diane Ferrante and a few other people that that worked there at the time in their media department. And every day they would come in, I would say, and we got to know each other over a couple, over a year, 2-year period. And I would tell them, I'm a coach at Oakland, when are the Pistons going to start a team? I'm happy to help, blah, blah, blah. And so that went on for a long time. And then all of a sudden, pretty much out of nowhere, there was a team that was formed, and there was another coach that was hired. And so I was, I had been talking to them about it for a long time, but I wasn't dancing at the time. But I realized that would be my one opportunity if I was going to stay in Michigan to dance professionally. It was a sports team auditioned, and at the time there were 600 people that auditioned, and I was very lucky to get that job. And then I only danced for 1 year because I was actually consulting at the time, and I was starting my family. So I danced for 1 year. I did have some injuries too, just my old body at the time. Like a handful of years later, I had kept in touch with Pete and Diane, but a handful of years later, there was an opening for that same coaching position there. And I knew, I had kept in touch with Pete and Diane and that network for a long time. And so they brought me into direct. So I started into the February of 2001, midway season, and was there for 10 years coaching.
Wow. So a little bit of serendipity just from having Pete and Diane come in to, it really set you off in your whole career.
It did. And they always tell me to this day, we always laugh because they're like, we realized we knew you when we saw you at the audition, and we were like, please, hopefully she can dance as bartender, so it really, it was one of the first things that I realized in my career, that if I'm going to be in this niche of a market and do this type of thing and create my own career, the networks are everything,
For sure.
It proves though, and they even say this, Pete had always said it to me, was, you did it. You could dance. You lived up to what your experience was. You were able to walk the walk, and then you were such a good dancer that's why we wanted you as a director, so it was the first time in my, my young career that I realized the power of all that. And,
so what is your official title?
Currently or there?
What is your official title now for the Lions?
It's the Detroit Lions Cheerleaders, Director of Detroit Lions Cheerleaders and Live Entertainment.
Entertainment. Okay.
Yeah.
So how busy does that keep you now?
Pretty busy. It is, being in the entertainment industry, Kat, it is a very demanding job. You're behind the scenes, and so you get to see a lot of things, all the things and all the steps of how everything kind of pulls off. And so it does start to get tiring sometimes. I'm not going to lie, there's long hours, it takes a long time to plan entertainment. And it's such a myth that people think that it's so easy. But there is a lot of time behind the scenes. So I work a lot. I'm developing this program and have been for the last 5 years. So I put my heart and soul into it and do things I probably don't need to do really sometimes. But it's really important for me to leave a legacy and do everything I can to make that happen. So I do work a lot, and I do stay pretty busy, but I try to make it fun too. So.
Moving on. So you are the director of the Detroit Lions Cheerleaders, and they didn't have a team until recently. And tell me a little bit about that. How did that team come together? Did you talk to someone beforehand and bug them to get a team together too?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, I did. So I'll tell you what happened just 5 years ago, and then I'll finish it with what happened 25 years ago. 5 years ago, I was contacted by their staff there, Emily Griffin, who I worked with at the Palace. They had been doing a lot of research about what it would mean to have a team. They were one of 6 teams in the league that didn't have a cheerleading team. And there's a lot of rumors about why, but there's nothing behind it. They just did it. And so, so they got to a certain point in the research of like, how do we take this to the next level? And Emily put my name on the table. And so I went in and consulted for the organization and the ownership for about 3 months, all under the radar. And then they pulled the trigger and they hired me in the process. So, 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago, I typed out a proposal for the Detroit Lions on a typewriter, a real typewriter, and did a VHS tape, and I submitted it to then their marketing director. In fact, I remember delivering it to him. They were having training camp at Saginaw State University, and I went and met him and rode around on a golf cart. That was the meeting. There were a lot of people in the industry, in the dance industry, cheer industry here in Michigan that proposed, to them. So I still have a copy of that. I have a copy of the VHS tape, but when I got the job and I ran into the media, staff member that I rode around with and presented 20 some years ago, I mean, we hugged and cried. Another big story of just, like how persistence and following your dreams and, making the networks. I mean, I would have probably not had that job had I not worked with Emily at Pistons, and she knew my success with the Pistons. So it is a full circle. It was a full circle moment for me, and just embedded, some of my beliefs about, the things I had learned about how I got the Pistons job too. So,
yeah. Now, do you have assistant coaches and whatnot? How big is the team? How big is the cheerleading team?
Yeah, so I have a coordinator, and I'm very, very blessed to have one because I worked solo for many years in the NBA. And we have 30 cheerleaders on the team, 30 ambassadors. Wow. Yeah, it's a big team, but it's a big job. Outside of the 8 games, which are very demanding, they rehearse at 7 a.m. and we don't leave until 5, so we're there all day. Mm-hmm. Lots of public appearances. It's a very big job on game day for all of us. I mean, the next day it's hard to walk the next day. But outside of that, we do a lot of community appearances, and we have a great junior program, and a lot of things in development right now still with being in the 5th year. But we just held our first ever virtual audition. So I have 48 candidates in the pool right now waiting for next steps. So that's where we're at. We did everything virtual this year.
That's great.
So, and to your point, Rebecca, I don't think that anyone really realizes, you think, 8 games a year, it's not a lot, especially coming from an organization that had 40 games a year. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's a production. I mean, those 8 games have all the oomph of the 40 game season. So I feel you on that. Those are long days. And,
absolutely. Very demanding, and the pressure is just different because there is only 8. Well, we actually work for the preseason games as well. So we have 10 total, but it is a lot. It's a big lift. It's a lot to put it on. And when you're in an NBA season and you're rolling through those 40 games, it's just kind of, you just, kind of roll through it. But when you have 8 big high pressure situations, it's a lot different of a prep.
So the people that had your job before you, were they influential in your life? I know it sounded like you had a lot of people with connections to all of the Detroit Pistons and Lions and all of that, but who else helped to help you know how to be successful in the job you're currently successful in?
Yeah, so, I mean, the job that I'm in existed around the country, but not in Detroit. And so I was lucky to be at the beginning of both those stages here with the Lions and the Pistons. So I feel really blessed to have to be a pioneer. But I did really look to my colleagues across the league at the other cheer and dance companies. But I also looked outside of the industry. I was a business consultant with Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. And I have an HR degree. I worked in HR. I put myself through college, every last penny. I lived on my own from a young age. So hard work was something that I didn't have a choice. And I was alone. I grew up alone. I didn't have a lot of mentors. So I looked to my amazing aunts in my family. But I looked to my professors. I really was lucky that for some reason I just always reached out and asked advice to my professors. I think that my college professors made a big impact on me, and yeah, I would say that those were probably the most influential people.
Right.
So you have a lot of, probably younger girls that come, to you and look to you as a mentor. And what type of advice do you give them as somebody who's been through the industry and business, it's professional sports, dancing? How do you kind of guide them to their own success?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many ways to answer that, but I think when I the thing that comes to my mind always to answer that question really is just about hard work, and just really being your authentic self. It's so easy to, be someone who might not be, 100% true on, with the social media platforms that we're all kind of behind. And so in today's world, being authentic and working really hard and building a resume that you can just be really proud of, like that you can show that you worked really hard regardless of what the outcomes were. I think that's those two things, are very defining. And that there isn't a secret. Like there's just no secret to success. You have to work hard and you have to just keep persevering. I spent time working in high school, and taking care of my young brothers and, not having a lot. And when I look back at it, it's the reason why I got out of the situation I was in is because I worked hard, and that there was no other reason. So to me, it's that truth, it's like that authentic self and working hard and being able to just really stand behind who you are.
Well, it sounds like a lot of determination too on your part. Working hard comes from strength and determination and the things that you want to have happen, and you can see something in front of you and you're like, I'm going to go for it. Right. So do you help the other cheerleader, or you said ambassadors, right? Ambassadors. Yeah. When you go out in public, is there some coaching that goes along with what you're saying right there? Let's be successful. We're representing the Detroit Lions, kind of what's the hype before you get out there and go into public and teaching the girls what you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a huge proponent of training and development. It was part of my degree in college, and I just had done it all along, in all my different jobs. But and as a coach, you just have to train people. Like you can see some great talented dancers, but there's always training to make them better, especially on a large scale in front of 65,000 people. You have to show them what the fans are going to see so that you can make sure that their confidence isn't rattled. But yeah, a lot of training, and I do a lot of business training. We have public relations training, how to carry yourself, how to speak, how to talk, how to work an audience, how to read an audience, how to read a room, how to shake hands. And I refuse to let shaking hands go away. I'm not going to let
I know.
It's so important for women to be able to shake hands. We're toying with some other ideas of how to greet people, and I think we might come up with a couple of good ideas. But yeah, a lot of training. The women that try out for the team, they're 21 and over in our team. We made a conscious decision to keep the age a little bit older. And I think that that's really helped. We have a lot of business professionals and women who come out of college that want to continue to dance from college. And that's something that is really important for our program because they bring with them an acumen of business and college that some might not quite have yet. But we do offer a lot of training, and in most cases it's their first job, and it's a job versus a dance, team job that they might have had in college or a studio. So there's a lot of learning and development that goes along with that. So I have a lot of training programs, maybe too many sometimes, but I think it's really important.
You said that that you're currently going through the audition process right now, virtual auditions, which is really interesting. So how do you do that? And then what type of people are you looking for?
Yeah, so we had the most we had since our first year tryout. We had over 350 tryout the first year, so 5 years ago. And then this year we had about 161, and we had candidates from more than 15 universities in the state of Michigan and beyond. And then we had more than 15 states represented because it was virtual. So across the league, even a lot of the other directors had a wide range of candidates from across the state audition.
Yeah.
And we're looking for candidates who are coachable. I mean, we're looking for dancers who can perform under pressure, because if you don't have that part of it just is very hard to teach. And when you're performing live and you're on the field for, the entire time of the game, all the things you plan always don't happen. They don't happen how you plan them. So you have to have people that are can handle the ambiguity of not maybe knowing what's going to come next. So there's a lot of inherent skills there that are very hard to teach. But outside of that, we look for coachable, athletes that will train, in fitness and nutrition to become a better athlete and a better dancer. And so there isn't like one specific skill that they have to have. They just have to be coachable and trainable. And so, we really do look for business women first. I mean, that's really the foundation.
So be honest with me.
Yeah.
Do I have what it takes? I can't dance at all. I can dance in my living room a little bit, but no, I'm just kidding. I mean, I know the women are tremendous athletes, and so I wouldn't even pretend to skill. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think people, it's like watching all the singing shows on TV, looking from the outside in, you think, oh, that's really easy and I could do that. But those crafts take a long time, and even longer than that if you don't have experience dancing on a large scale or performing on a large scale or speaking on a large scale or representing a brand that's, that's threefold with, the cheerleading program, the Lions, the NFL. Those are big brands, and there is a lot of business acumen that goes into that. And so, it's really important that we have the balance of both, that, they can perform. And we're, as a new program in the league, we really went more production based too. We're trying to, just grow the trend of what it means to be a cheerleader. The word cheerleader is just semantics for us. They're really entertainers and performers and ambassadors. So we do a lot of different things. We hold signs up. We stunt, we tumble, we dance, we cheer, we, run activities on the field for sponsors. Like, there's just a variety of different things that we do. So, we've got to have people that can kind of handle all that.
That's great. So what do you see coming up in the future for you, the next 5-10 years? How long will your career span, do you believe?
That's a good question. I was asked that question a little while ago, and I immediately was like, I'm just going to retire and be on the beach up north. But I think it's going to be a lot more than that for me. I'm an advocate of a lot of different things, and I really, want to make sure that, people are out there voting. Voting is really important, more important right now than ever before. We need people to vote and realize the power of that. And so I really have always wanted to be a motivational speaker on a larger scale and do some, little book writing and things like that. So I am not going anywhere anytime soon. I plan to dig in deep and work as long as I possibly can to build a great program and, really build a legacy. Of women, of equally minded, strong women who will want to do the same thing I do and make a difference in our communities and be role models, really strong role models for others. So, so I don't really think it's one specific thing, but I know
How about
that
podcasting?
I definitely want to do that. I have a lot to say. I didn't come from a wealthy background. I came from hard knocks, and I don't want people to feel sorry for me about that, but I did, and it made me who I am. And I have an amazing family, and I want people to know that you can work hard and still be successful, and if you stay focused, So I have a lot to say.
Those success principles. Yeah, those are great.
And I have to say one more thing about that. My aunt, who is in her mid-70s, she was a mayor candidate in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and she did not win, but she is a winner for me for sure. But when she told us that she was running for mayor, I was like, wait, what? Like you're 70 something years old, and it just took me a second, and I was like, all right, well, there's just a different kind of hope for women now, right? Like that maybe never existed before. I would have never thought of that, and now that she's done it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally running for. I love that you look at the state of the world right now. You're like, maybe I want to be a mayor.
I'm up for you.
It just made me realize that there's so much more that we can do and different paths that we can take, and so that was inspiring. So I have a lot more to do. I've got to sit down and really kind of zone it in a little.
That's great.
So if you had to leave our listeners with kind of a few different principles or one or something that's really important to you that you really think has been the defining characteristic to what brought you to success, what would you say that was?
Oh, well, besides the working hard and being authentic, I think those things have to speak really loudly because of the social media world we live in. People are not who they say they are, and that has to really change. We cannot hide behind media. We cannot. We have to find that way to be authentic. I think that's so important for women. I think the other thing that just came to my mind though too, and that's something that I kind of think about a lot, is the relationships we have with people are so important. Like to receive a call from even you, and it's like our paths did cross again. Like we left going, okay, maybe I'll never see her again. And that's sad, but then they did. And that power of the relationships and the networking I just shared two stories that define my success. Without people in those relationships, I would not be here. Maybe other people would have helped me or whatever, but I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer, where there's a million of those jobs. I'm in a niche position. So the networks to be able to create what I wanted to do, you just cannot substitute that for anything. And so, my daughter's 21. I encourage her. I'm like, make a list. Just the other day, I said, make a list of, women that you need, and role models to talk to learn everything you can and to start building networks, because it is the power of the relationships, and what people will do for each other is super important. So
that's so true.
Yeah. But who would have thought? When I saw that, I was just like, it's just amazing. Like you don't realize it until you're much older. You just don't when you're in your 20s. And when I told my daughter that, she was pen to paper, she was writing it down, and
don't burn your bridges really, it resonates with me, because you never know when you're going to circle back to somebody at some point. So
yeah. And it's interesting that you said that too, because, I hire people. So I know that people want to, they reach out to me, they want, me as a mentor or a network or whatever, because they might want a job someday. But I am very candid with people about it. I want to have real relationships. I don't want people to have a relationship with me because I'm in the position I am, that I would hire or not hire you. Like, I'm going to hire the people that are ready for the job. But I will certainly coach other people and develop and be a network. And I just want real relationships. And I think that that's something that I learned. I burned a few bridges in my day, trust me.
Haven't we all? Yeah.
Yeah, and you learn really quickly that doesn't work.
Obstacles.
The
obstacles we overcome.
Yeah, and it's just it's proof that you have to be authentic, because if you're not and you burn those bridges, it's so hard to get them back. It's so hard to win people back, or redo.
Yeah. An important message for sure. And like you had mentioned, today's social media world, and, trying to.
I just don't think people realize it. And I say often I have a crystal ball. In my social media world, I see people who dance for me. I've been coaching for almost more than 30 years. So I see women and men who dance for me and perform for me and work for me, and I see the circles that they start, and it's a crystal ball, and it's beautiful, but it's at the same time it's also like, be careful, everyone. Like, just be yourself and stay the course. Don't be tempted by social media and the power behind a keyboard. Be true to it, because it does kind of come back around. So,
yeah. We didn't really give kudos to the men who are on the squad, because I did hear you say women and men, and we have been referring to women. So how many men are on the squad?
Yeah, so our situation is a little unique. We have a flag crew that has male stunters on it. They kind of fulfill both roles. In college teams, the men that are cheerleaders, that are stunters, also run flags. So we kind of have that same scenario. So we've had a handful. We're just building that part of the program. It's still in development. It's just really hard to find the right balance, and find stunting is a very high risk job. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of training that goes into it. And on the pro level, we just really want to try to make it right and make it unique. So we're still kind of defining what that looks like. But I've had male dancers dance for me on the WNBA team that I coached. It was like a hip hop team. And so, I've always had men as part of our halftime shows and different performances. So
spare tire.
Yes, the spare tires. Yes. My favorite. And Motown classics, like the 65 and up. Yeah, there was always men involved somehow. But yeah, the spare tire. I had them perform, I think, 2 seasons ago for the Lions. They were Santa Clauses in a halftime show, and they were so happy.
Spare tire. Have you seen them performed, Gina?
No, I haven't.
They were great. They were hilarious and awesome.
And very talented.
Buy a ticket. Yeah. Well, Rebecca, it has been such a pleasure having you on our Success Principles today. We really enjoyed having you. And if people want to learn more about the Detroit Lions cheerleading squad and the things that you're doing, where should we send them? What should we add to the bottom of these podcasts that we have for you?
Yeah, we're on DetroitLionsCheerleaders.com. They can go to that website and check us out. And there's bios and videos, and we also have all our social media accounts. And if people are looking to talk to me directly, I'm on social media, so they can find me there too. So
great.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate that you have taken the time to stop by for a bit.
For more information about the topics we discussed today, there are links in the show notes for your reference. If you'd like to learn more about the Success Principles podcast and about Kat and myself, go to www.successprinciplespodcast.com. Gina Wells is an investment advisor representative of Retirement Wealth Advisors Incorporated, an SEC registered advisor. Success Principles Podcast and RWA are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with professionals specialized in fields of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of the information for their situation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than originally invested.